In selecting a figure for use in an elevation, it can't look as if it's in perspective. For example, the female figure on the far right has feet that are drawn in perspective. The far one appears higher than the one closest to us. You would just need to drop that 1 foot down before you could use her, but she would be fine. The other two figures that are facing us could work just as they are. To size your figure, remember the rules. A male figure's head tops out at 6 feet, a female's eyes at 5 foot eye line, or the 5 foot. You can also, if she's in heels, you can make the top of her head at 5 foot 8. Side lighting is the best revealer of form. So when you're starting with your figure, work your way down from the top of his head to his feet, connecting up your shadows down one side. In this case, the light is from above. It's from a ceiling light fixture, and it's on his right, so his shadows are on the left. In selecting the colors for his clothing or your figure's clothing, remember that figures are background. They're not the focus. So you want to repeat colors you've already used, and repeat the colors you've used the most. I know that he's going into a warm room, so I've rendered him in neutral warm grays, not cool grays. I put warm grays over my initial cool gray shadows, and here he is. He's in his warm environment now, and he should be camouflaged. He shouldn't stick out as the focus. In rendering our figure, we want to get off to a good start by having a thicker outline and a thinner inside line. In terms of lighting her, we are going to think she's almost like a cylinder. She's tall and round, so relatively speaking. So we're going to think of her like our cylinder and have our light values on the front and our shadow values on the side. So we may not put any values on the front of her at all. We may just stick to side values, and that will hold her. We don't want a lot of detail on her. She's an icon. She represents a certain lifestyle that fits right along into your design. So, and the room that you have in mind for your client. So we'll just use our 30 and our 50, and we'll put them on sparingly. And on the left-hand side, that's our plan. Remember, when you render, you should always start out with a plan. Just don't go blindly. You have an idea of what you want to accomplish. So the first thing I'm going to do is just maybe define the shape of her face. Put a little bit of shadow to define her face. I don't want to know about her features. I just want to define her face. And I want to, she has light from above, so I don't want to put a lot of value on the top of her head, but the side of her head is starting in shadow. So I put that shape of 30%, and I'm darkening a little bit at the top of it with my 50. Now under here would be shadow, so, and on her neck, so I can put 30 and then a little 50. And her hair would be in shadow here. It's behind her, so we'll put that in. It will give us maybe a nice anchor, a little spot of attention. Remember, the longer you stay on the page, the darker this will get. So if I want to set up her arm to separate it from her hair, I just go a little bit longer in one spot or two spots, and I get a gradual value. So those are a couple of ways of getting a gradual value. Now there's going to be a little shadow from her head, so it would be okay. I don't have to do it, but I could put a little shadow to lift her face off. There's a little bit of light in here. Her ear would be in shadow, so I can do that. But that little rim of light is helpful because it lifts her face from her shoulder. There'd be a little shadow here if my light is from the side, so I can put a little bit in there as well in her hair. In hair, you kind of comb hair with in the direction that it's going. That's usually useful. There'd be a little shadow from her lapel. I'm using the 30 now. I don't want to go too dark. Remember, I'm on the light side, so I don't want to go too dark. Now, this is in shadow, so I'm going to just start up at the top here, and it's cloth, so there'd be shadow here, but not here because that's getting light, and I can put some down here. But I don't want to go too long until I put a little bit of the 50 inside. I don't put it at the edge, I put it inside. And if I don't think that shape is quite round enough for her arm, I'll just round it out a little bit. This is not. The figure's round, so best to stick to round shapes when you're describing it. Okay, there's a shadow. Oh, I can put a little bit. See, I want a gradual value, so I'm not coloring the whole thing with the 50. I start with the 30 and then I see what I need. So as this billows out, it gets light. So I can put a little shadow under here, and then it shows it kind of billowing out. And there's a shadow right underneath her sleeve, and then there's shadow on the downturn of her fingers. So, and then I want to put a shadow from her hand and a shadow down the length of her skirt, but I don't go right to the edge. I just want to leave a little bit of light there so that it can transition into the next form or help to support the next form. So by adding contrast to it, if there's light here, then the next form might be dark, and this will help to support that dark. I'm just going to put a little shadow under her hand with my 50 and go down inside the 30. I'm not at the edge of the 30, I'm inside it. That's important because the 50 is too dark. It will seem like too dark a line. I might bump this shadow up a little bit. Now this usually goes very fast. You're not really thinking about her too much like this because she's not really the most important thing, is she? She's just there to symbolize someone that would be very happy in the room that you've created. So I can add a little accent of the 50 to lift the side of her chest off of her arm. Put a little bit of that there. Now I don't think I'll do anything at the front of her because that might make a nice contrast for the next thing. Maybe for her fingers I could put a dot of 50 at the top. That'll give a little reflected light because the floor is reflecting up, but it's not necessary. You can really simplify this. I want to put a little shadow here from her skirt and maybe down her foot, just in her shoe. And this is the 30 again. Always starting with the 30 and finishing up with touches of the 50. Not a lot of touches, just a few touches. So I want to start this shadow with a little bit of 50, and the side of this foot maybe go a little darker because it will support the foot in front. And that's really all you would need to do here. The first thing you want to do is to line up your tracing paper with the top and the side frame of the copier. Get it on the glass correctly because we spent a lot of time aligning the top and the sides with our perfect 8.5/11 sheet of paper so that when we use our figure we'll know that he's standing correctly and that he'll look straight. I like to put a clean piece of white paper over top of my tracing paper because you never know what's on the underside of the copier lid. And remember too that you can turn your figure, since it's on tracing paper, you can turn it over and have it facing the other way if you like. After you've logged in, select copy as usual. What you'll notice on the next screen is that the ability to scale has been deactivated. You can't use it. When it's activated, it should look like this instead. To remedy this, you have to change both the copy from function and the copy to function to copy from letter 8.5/11 inches to copy to letter 8.5/11 inches plain. You'll be changing them one at a time. You have to press on the arrow beside them and it will take you to a new page. It's going to take you around the world, the paper world of unimaginable sizes, but persevere and keep pressing on the up arrow and eventually you'll get to plain 8.5/11 paper. Select that and then click on the green arrow down below. And then it'll go back to the same window And you need to do the same thing for the second one. Here you see only the bottom one has been changed and the scale is still inactive. You can't use it. You have to change both of them. Ta-da! Here both of them have been changed and the scale is active. You can go up and down it without any trouble at all. Here is our fine result. Our tracing paper figure is on the left and the 70% that we asked for is on the right.